This is a Title I supplementary module for ELA, focusing upon argumentative writing and avoiding fallacies in evidence in the secondary level. The standard assessed focuses upon the Common Core College and Career Readiness Anchor Standard for writing. The specific example of that standard for the 11th and 12th grade Common Core is to write arguments to support claims in an analysis of substantive topics or texts using valid reasoning and relevant and sufficient evidence. The focal point for today then is that valid reasoning. So ultimately, this is a lesson that teaches students that their claims must be supported by logical and effective evidence. While we all know that some students struggle with writing, research shows that this is actually a good thing to help students learn. But the problem is that students often think that the evidence speaks for itself, or they choose pieces of evidence that are not fully logical in connection with the argument they are trying to make. So, in order to avoid using forms of fallacy while supporting the argument, students need to be taught what fallacies are and how to create evidence that does not offer circular reasoning, faulty reasoning, generalizations, or other such issues. Before beginning this lesson, students do need to be able to write a claim. They do need to be able to understand the idea of finding and using evidence to support that claim, and they should be familiar with the writing workshop format. As a teacher, you will want to make sure that you have copies of the handout Common Fallacies available to review with your students, and that you have access to the online video and quiz associated with this lesson. In addition, it is a great idea for you to make a quiz or a checking for understanding assessment that includes examples from student writing or examples that you've generated if you do not have student writing examples. The modeling and guided practice of the video will take roughly 10 minutes. Here's an example of a clip from the video.
When you write any essay, particularly an argumentative essay in which you're building a case for a particular position, it's important to be logical as you construct your points and as you move from one idea to the next. No reader is going to be convinced by an illogical or confusing argument. So when you're writing, you want to avoid logical fallacies. A logical fallacy is essentially a flawed argument or error in reasoning. Logical fallacies are problems in the way that a writer has constructed an argument. It's not terribly important that you be able to name and identify the specific types of logical fallacies. What is important is that you're able to spot and fix a flawed argument when you've made one, and better yet, that you avoid.
This video then goes on to explain a few different common types of fallacies that students use in their writing. When you finish the video, you may then go to the quiz. This would be just a whole group checking for understanding, where you have students either raise their hands for the answer they would choose, you have a student come up to the star board and select the answer, or you simply take a volunteer. So an example of a non sequitur would be, everyone understands the importance of cutting down on CO2 emissions. If you don't take part in this recycling program, you're not a good citizen. You must vote for this mayoral candidate or the entire city will go bankrupt. All answers are correct. Bill has reached retirement age, so he's going to the football game. Once you've watched the video, you know that a non sequitur fallacy is one where it's not related. So students should be able to identify that going to a football game does not necessarily have anything to do with reaching retirement age. Someone might give you that answer, check that answer, it lets you know if your answer is correct, and then you can move on to the next question. This is just a short 5-question quiz that allows you to check for understanding. Once you've done that, take some time to review the fallacy handout and the examples. Students can do this on their own, and you might ask them to highlight the ones that they have used before or think that they are likely to use. As students go through this, they will begin to recognize some of the things. When they're done, simply go through together as a class and discuss the most common fallacies, or what students are afraid of using. You will find that a lot of them have identified similar examples. Finally, create a quiz of examples and have students identify the pieces of evidence that are illogical. Depending on how far you want to take this lesson, you may want students not to simply identify the illogical arguments, but to also correct them or suggest ways in which that information could be corrected. In all, this lesson will take roughly 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how much time you spend on the active engagement section. This is how you might encourage students to avoid fallacies in their writing.